Hello, friends, fellow gamers. Welcome to our patron hangout for the month of May, our US timed hangouts. And the patrons should be joining me here shortly. We've just finished running a session about half an hour ago of Star Wars Force and Destiny, playing our Jedi Knight and messing around with the original trilogy's timeline and whatnot. Definitely a lot of fun. I've been enjoying that a good deal. Reliving the Star Wars universe and playing through that, all that good stuff. It's great. Good evening, Sean.
What's up?
Just talking about how we finished playing a session of Star Wars, and I'm still a bit overwhelmed by the system, but I'm getting used to it. Doing better.
Yeah, I just had pho for the first time.
Pho.
Vietnamese noodles.
Yeah, I thought that sounded familiar, the food.
They're really good.
All right. The numbered restaurants like Pho 273 or Pho 49, or did you just get the type of food?
I went to a pho restaurant. It was over here. There's a place called Dat Pho.
Dat Pho. Well, that sounds nice. Going out to eat is always a nice little perk when it comes along.
They got a haircut.
I got a face cut, the face hair.
Face cut.
The top haircut is coming soon as summer approaches. Like to whittle it down a little bit. Cool. In Colorado, most people don't have air conditioning because they don't need it 95% of the time. 5% of the time, you definitely need it. And the haircut is a little way to help that. Let's see.
So how long does it usually take for people to trickle in?
5 to 10 minutes. Usually we'll get a couple in and then it fills up by half an hour is usually how this goes. Some people don't. Some nights they're able to just watch and listen in, and other nights able to do a little more. In the audience. Well, anything on your minds, feel free to just open up. I mean, it's you and I until anyone else shows up. So we're adding a new player to our campaign. We've got a Pathfinder game. You're working on a system. Lots of stuff going on.
I don't want to talk too much about my system live.
Sure.
Yet.
How about this? When I had a question for you, when we first started playing, you came across as like really Pathfinder and liking all the customization, liking all the options. Now you've played at least 5 sessions or so, if not a couple more, of 5e. You've leveled up a couple times. I've heard your personal style for Pathfinder, and I'm getting a little bit of it for 5e. How would you? What kind of is your viewpoint now on the systems?
I would say it is split down evenly. I like them both pretty equally. I've lost a little bit of respect for Paizo and gained some for 5e.
So you lost the respect by the system coming out, or something else that they were doing?
No, it's just they just keep on releasing books and books and books and books and books. It's getting overwhelming now. You need to slow their roll.
Like you have to keep up getting the newest ones, and at least incorporating the newest ones.
Like John Rice literally has almost a full-time job putting stuff on his website for PFSRD because of how many books are coming out.
Transferring it all over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, it's. I mean, I'm open to the discussion of like, well, what would you do how does a company who builds a game system sustain itself by, and you release more content for it, right? Is there a better way to do it?
I would make another game system. Perhaps a sci-fi version or something like that. Do other things rather than just keep on, milking dry the one thing that they have.
Well, people are still playing it though, playing Paizo's Advocate.
Mm-hmm.
They're still playing it. They ask for more content, it seems. Are they just meeting demand, or do you think there's not a demand?
A little bit of both.
Hello, everyone.
Good evening. Welcome. We are talking about whether Paizo is too much. When is the time to make a new system instead of adding things to your old one? How do you know when that is?
I think it'd be kind of difficult to actually be able to tell when it is, but when you've had the system out for, 7 years, I think? 7 or 8 years? And you're releasing like a book almost every month or every other month, might be time to try something else.
I can at least speak to the idea of, in a different way, but similar in fashion, I face for doing different kind of content on the YouTube channel. Part of it feels like it would be better if I'm going to do something that's not what I've been doing, to do it on a separate, do something new to contain it. But on the same time, massive effort to build up an audience in order, and even if I put it out on the main channel like a Let's Play or something, or I did a cooking show, the temptation for doing it on the main channel would be strong because there's already an audience there. So I can see that how Paizo has people play Pathfinder. So rather than, well, you have to also consider that struggle when 3rd edition turned into 4th edition. What am I supposed to do with all my books? I bought all these books for Pathfinder. Now no one plays Pathfinder. Now you're making me buy all your new stuff. No easy answer that I can think of on how do you go about doing it.
I would say just do completely different stuff. I don't know, make like Pathfinder toys and other things like that to kind of make some more money on the side. That way you can release books at a slower pace.
Yeah, but the main thing that people are going to buy is going to be books. I mean, I don't know the figures, but I guarantee you that if you look at Paizo's revenue, the large majority of it is going to be from books. Because that's what people buy. And if Paizo wants to stay in business, and I want Paizo to stay in business, then they're going to need to keep publishing these new books.
I just feel it's too frequent to the point where it's starting to becoming a little overwhelming.
Well, I mean, the nice thing is you always have the option to not include new stuff. Like, if they didn't publish enough, then, you would need to keep buying all the new stuff. But, I mean, with just the core rulebook, you can run a decent game of Pathfinder. If you just have the core rulebook and the APG and all the Ultimate books, I mean, that's enough for a campaign. There's nothing, you don't need to buy all of the new books if you don't want to, and you think that that's overwhelming or too many options.
I can see where Sean's coming from, at least on, you're right, it's not an actual need, but it definitely feels like a perceived need that I am, especially if you're doing competitive play like Pathfinder Society, is competitive play. Feel like I'm disadvantaged because I don't have the newest, best powers available to me, or I need to optimize my build more, and more books there's more books out that have better items, and I don't have the books, so my character's not as good, or I just got to keep up with everything. I feel that I'm way behind on doing my Pathfinder guides, and other classes are coming out. I've just run out of things to say or interest in. I feel the fatigue too.
Coming from having an AI from the business side of things, Paizo, if they're going to be continue making books, they should find a healthy balance. How many books should Paizo put out without overloading the person having to buy each one every month or so? So finding a healthy balance to keeping the people entertained still. Produce too much and you tire the customer out. Produce too little and you lose their interest. So a nice gray area is important to find.
Exactly, and not even just for us, but for them too. Because the more content they write out, the less they're going to be able to do. Just Game Freak is starting to hit that part at that point too, trying to run out of ideas for Pokemon.
Last time I checked, there was around 1,000 Pokemon, and that's not including the new Pokemon games. I don't know how many.
Over 700. Over 700.
Yeah,
700?
not quite there yet.
Oh.
For the next couple years, maybe.
Yeah. When it comes to Pathfinder, I can kind of see. I mean, I understand why they'd want to keep expanding the game and get out various different options there. I have a relatively limited amount of experience to Pathfinder, probably compared to everyone else's here, and most of it has been just freaking out because I had a hard enough time getting a handle on just the basics of playing, a low-end bard, and then there was all this other stuff that I felt like I had to add in from additional supplements, including the third-party one, Path of War, into my bard just to make them able to live. It got overwhelming very fast. So just coming from someone who had been trying to learn Pathfinder and then having to add on extraneous stuff to stuff from the core rulebook, it was really overwhelming.
I posted an article in the chat that I read recently about this topic. The article discusses that basically the new books should be thought of similarly to DLC in video games, because it's not a necessary thing to get. The material is there to help you, and if it doesn't help you, then you don't have to use it, because like I said, you can just run a fine game with core Pathfinder or core Pathfinder plus APG and the Ultimate books and things like that.
One issue that the group that I play with on Friday, the GM only allow the core rulebook and the advanced racebook only. If he was using anything else, that would put more stress onto him. So this is why Session 0 is important to know what books are going to be used.
I think I'm pretty clearly moving forward with the putting it in the DLC mindset of, you know what, I don't have it, I'm not to feel like I have to get it, which I definitely have felt that way. And probably from here on out, my Pathfinder games will be probably just core.
You keep cutting in and out.
It just makes it. That's where I feel most comfortable, and I don't feel like it needs any more than that. So that's where I'll stick. And then another group will be, we got the latest book. We're going to utilize all the latest stuff. They're keeping up with everything. Yeah, that can be their thing.
Yeah, my personal motto is use what you have and tell a good story arc with just basically core book. He'll invade, he'll save the land. You don't need to have the new DLCs to tell a great story.
Yeah, I've actually been working recently. I'm planning to run a game with some friends with heavily modified Pathfinder, and basically I've just been modifying everything to make it a lot simpler, and I'm taking out a lot of the rules, making it more like a D&D or older editions of D&D, where things were just a lot simpler, and it's the mechanics, because Pathfinder has a lot of mechanics, as anyone will tell you, and the mechanics can help, but when you take out a lot of that mechanical fluff, it actually kind of frees you to tell more stories and different kinds of stories than you have with all of those predefined things.
Yeah, the longest running campaign that I was a part of was, and I know it's a different system, please don't judge me here, in 4E actually started out with limitations of, you can only use up to like Player's Handbook 2 and the various different power supplements, and that's about it. And most fun I've had.
Yeah, same. My longest running game was core rulebook 3.5 plus a bunch of home rules, but no other books from 3.5, just core rulebook, and that ended up being a lot of fun, and we told a very interesting story with just that.
Yeah, I find it more and more, the more rules out, the more I'm buried by them and not freed by them. Just been my growing experience.
Yeah, just speaking personally, one of my favorite games to this day is probably about as rules light as you can get. Dungeon World. It's very rules light. It puts a lot on the players because it's very much cooperative on how you build up the universe, because the GM comes to you with a lot of stuff. But as far as just the rules for rolling things, 2d6 plus a mod for everything. If it's 10 to 12 or higher, then you do good. If it's 7 to 9, you do kind of okay, maybe have one setback. If it's 6 or less, you really screwed up, but you get experience points.
Yeah, I found I did enjoy the few sessions that I played. It seemed to rely pretty heavily. I mean, all games are player centric, but really rely on the player's ability to go with the ebb and flow, to kind of you go, and then taking turns and shouting at each other and those kind of things. But with the right group, there's definitely doesn't feel restrictive. I mean, it's easy flow once you get the hang, and not even we got it pretty quickly.
Yeah. When I was playing Dungeon World, I started out playing like a stereotypical kind of matronly cleric, and then there was this one encounter that we had where we came across a demon, a word demon, an embodiment of words. Whatever word was spoken, it would take on some kind of form or shape relative to it. So we ultimately ended up defeating it by spouting the word hippopotomonstrosesquipedaliophobia, the fear of long words, and then we just started yelling the longest words we could think of after it.
That is funny. It reminds me of one robot from Futurama. You had to actually overload the robot system by making it say very long words.
And it was also, we were trying to locate that demon, and my cleric actually managed to find it, but I rolled one of those 7 to 9s. So we found it, but I had to take a setback. And that setback was it left kind of a little piece of rage in her head, where from that point on she just had like a little twinge of hatred twisting her mind, which I played off as having her having anger management issues and being a bit of a blood knight from that point on.
I found it to make this, bring it more broad. This seems to happen. I mean, I've had the exact similar experience as far as a just good, enjoyable game happening in 4E, happening in 3rd edition, happening in retro clones and whatnot. It really more and more just feels to me the people make all the difference. The system really doesn't matter too much. But maybe you guys have had different experiences.
For me, it's a group and how people can actually tell the tale. The system does help when it comes to the rules. 5e is better for the rules, just like Dungeon World, but the system doesn't really matter.
Yeah, in 4E, you know, we've had the groups that have been to 4E have had a lot of fun with combat, but a lot of it has really been playing up to the characters' personalities. For lack of a better phrase, trigger happy ranger, just looking for targets to shoot. My snarky anti-theistic warlock, who ironically ended up becoming a demigoddess. We had our characters had, you know, actual unique personalities to them, and the game wouldn't have been half as fun without that.
One memorable character that I made, which I did enjoy playing for the time being, was the evil Diabolist that somehow sold his soul, but a doppelganger made the deal, so he went on a long search finding his soul again and killing his doppelganger. It's quite fun playing evil beings.
I usually play the guy who has to cover for the evil beings.
We remember being evil. There are 50 Shades of Grey to it.
I can't play evil to save my life.
I had the opposite issue. I cannot play good. It just doesn't in me.
I always have the problem of I can't play evil in like anything. Like I can't play evil in Skyrim. Like I've never done the Dark Brotherhood just because I never have a character that can. Like I always play lawful good paladin in Skyrim. That's just how I play.
Yeah, I played a Sith character for a while in Star Wars: The Old Republic. Whenever, of course, his boss was around, I'd always play him like, oh yeah, Sith stuff, yeah, dark side, woo. But whenever he was away with his companions, he was always like the most shining example of a Jedi, except a Sith.
I've been playing Star Wars: The Old Republic. I actually enjoy playing the Sith. I just have to remember, be evil. Don't do good.
I can't play jerks. I can't. I don't know why I can't.
I cannot play jerks or selfish people. I don't know why, but I can play what would be lawful people easily enough. It may be just a personal thing about me.
It had. Sorry. Go ahead.
It's important to know about yourself. What's really great, and then, as we say always, you know, don't mesh. Or what are the advantages of, Donald, you playing in a group that doesn't really work well with evil characters at all, or the advantage of me playing in a, you know.
Your mic is cutting out, Andrew.
So should you challenge yourself to step outside your comfort zones, or
yes,
because this is a hobby for fun, don't worry about it. Just if you like min-max optimization and roleplay, find a group that does exactly that.
Well, there is kind of a sub-challenge even if you don't play a different race, because when you end up in those cases where there's moral quandaries, it's always a case of then, okay, how do I play how this character would react to this without me being a dick about it? For instance, there was this one encounter session where most of the other people in the party were unaligned at best. I was lawful good cleric. What ended up happening was, well, my character was actually cordial with the rest of the group because, of course, we were competing in a very much enemy mine kind of situation where it's magic is going haywire and we've all got to cooperate to make sure things are working properly. And my character actually ended up being the face of the group because it was the only one that most royals would take seriously. In fact, I have one specific moment. Sorry for going on a long story on this. We were talking to a dwarven king, and we had just gotten through with the battle against some goblins, and this one like about 10, 11-year-old kid was playing an assassin who had taken one of the goblins and cut his face off. Sorry for that imagery. And when we were going to talk to the Dwarven King, the Dwarven King, of course, was asking if there was anything that we could do for him, and he was saying, "Yeah, do you have like a needle and thread so I can make a mask out of this?" And I was the one, of course, being the face for the company, and I look at the kid playing the assassin, I look at the DM, and I go, "Yeah, I'm not saying that." And he goes, "In character, I admire your courage. I admire your wisdom."
Me, I have nothing against doing what is good. It's just doing it all of the time, such as do all good and no evil. It's just something I have a problem wrapping my mind around, at least mentally. I have nothing against good alignment. The campaign which I was playing in, the evil diabolist, I was doing good acts which my character was proud of. I think the one book I read reading, evil villains will always be proud of the single good act that they did for the rest of their life, while the hero he is ashamed of doing one single wrong act in his entire life. If any of that makes sense.
Yeah. Another example of a moral quandary that one of my characters got in. I was playing a neutral good bard when I was playing Pathfinder, and I was, of course, told by the GM beforehand that there was a possibility, since my character was good, that there might be some points where there would be a moral quandary, and would I be able to work with that? And I was like, yeah, don't worry, I can find a way to work with this, because of that previous experience, having been the only lawful good in a character of evil and unaligned. So we go into that, and what it ends up being is, and for the longest time my character did not know this, the party was being hired by a group of vampires to take out a paladin that was causing them some trouble. So we go into this church, and the only thing my character knows is that there is a paladin who is abusing his powers for not good things. So she goes in with a character that's got 2 chaotic neutral people in there, both of them tiefling, and one of them a blood rager. She goes in there being a bard, a very diplomatic sort. In fact, I built her to be a fighting diplomat. She's in there trying to do, the whole diplomat detective thing, figure out what's going on. Chaotic neutral guy goes around the side, sword drawn, looking angry, approaching the person that my character's trying to talk to. And, of course, it all goes to hell immediately because, well, the GM's not going to let that go down even while I'm trying to, actually talk. So we get into a fight, and I'll shorten this story because I know Andrew knows the full story of this. I've talked to him about it in the past. Long story short, toward the end of it, that blood rager ended up killing a couple of orphans that were being raised at this church, in full view of my neutral good, very noble character. At the end of it, my character just didn't raise a huge fuss about it, even though PvP flags were on. Didn't raise a huge fuss about it, just wished the party well and went to leave. The Blood Rager bastard shot me in the back.
That is an entertaining tale. One personal rule for playing evil is I draw a line when it comes to doing evil acts. I wouldn't kill innocents unless if I have to.
Yeah, the rest of the party, their characters in character were respectful to mine. mine. And suffice it to say that Blood Rager did get his comeuppance because the cold-blooded murder of 2 kids dropped his alignment down to evil right before they went into battle with the Paladin. You can probably guess what happened after that.
Oh, I bet the Paladin used Smite Evil on that person, right?
At the time, he was the only real target in range at the time, so yeah. Overkill. That was funny. Wasn't so funny watching the person who played that character gripe and moan about it for literally days afterward. But it's at the time, knowing what happened was funny. And I got extra XP for playing up to my alignment. I got rewarded for doing that.
Here's a question along that line, just prompted by that. To XP or not to XP? I have given up using experience points probably in the last couple years. I just stopped doing it. Just focusing on milestone, you just level up after you accomplish something after a certain number of sessions, those kind of things. Beyond that, I don't want to do it. Now, that said, what has been your experience? Do you enjoy the points? Do you enjoy the elements like this? Or is milestones worked out or somewhere in between? What is your preference?
I actually prefer milestones. It's easier for the GM to say everyone in the party level up and don't have to worry about one person in the party being at level 5 still when everyone else is level 6. So having a mark everyone at the same level is better than the other option at times. It's up to the group, Woody.
I've had a little bit of both because with my 4E session, of course, because we were going through a whole campaign. To be specific, the Scales of War, which actually ended recently, we just went at certain key moments. If you read through the path, there are certain moments where it says, by this point, the character should be a certain level. My GM just read that as, okay, we're at this point, everyone level up. And that's how that worked. The Pathfinder game that I was part of is actually part of a Living World group on a forum. So they did use XP largely as a form of bookkeeping to keep track of what characters are where. So that way it was more organized for pickup games. They could say, oh, it's for this level range. Oh, I'm in that range. I'm in.
Yeah, personally, I think that it depends a lot on the group and also on the system you're using. Like in Pathfinder, XP is just in the game because it was in 3.5. Like other than that, there's no reason for there to be XP. There's no way to spend XP like there was in 3.5. There's no variable XP. It's just kind of in there because it's always been in there. So in Pathfinder, you can just take XP out and level up in milestones, and personally, I think that's the better way to do it in Pathfinder, just because it makes for a lot less bookkeeping, and it really doesn't impact the game in any negative way. But some groups do definitely enjoy the XP. I know I've played in groups where it's nice to know that it's nice to see that progression, because when you just do milestones, it is kind of just up to the whim of the DM. It is with XP, depending on how many monsters he throws at you, but it's more directly at the whim of the DM. And so it's nice to see that sense of progression.
And like I said earlier, also if you're in a group that has XP, while it may, yes, unlevel the scales a little bit, having some kind of reward for people, playing to their alignment or playing to their personality, or in 5e playing to their bonds or their flaws, does make sense because it encourages them to use those things that are there specifically for them to use. It makes the game, more interesting than just 20, 15, 1.
Oh, I've been muted. Well, there's some people who really enjoy that numbers side of it, and if you utilize the XP system, what Milestone doesn't have is when you come back to life, as far as you died and you had a resurrection penalty, or rewarding extra role playing, or incentivizing things. Should that be an incentive? Should you get bonuses to a game or to like the combat side of things, which is the numbers mechanics thing, by doing something that is not numbers mechanics, which is role playing? Thoughts?
The thing, if you do take out the level pen, let's say resurrecting someone, you are taking a part of the game out. I know certain spells, if you create a clone of yourself, I think one of the races, that clone, it is a level lower, so if you take that out, you're taking a part of the system out. So it have its cons and its pros by day's end.
Yeah, I've had characters die before and have to take the level penalty, and yeah, it does kind of stink, especially basically the links that you have to go through to get that moved. At the same time, it makes a lot of sense if you think about it from a personal standpoint, just from the person themselves, because they were dead and then were suddenly ripped out of whatever afterlife they were in and brought back into the real world. That would be a traumatic experience. So I think on some of my characters, I actually played that off for a while as kind of being a little bit of PTSD. Mostly because that's how the negative penalties made sense to me. But to the question of, should you get, mechanical rewards for non-mechanical things? I really think that depends on how loosely you take the mechanics. I mean, if you're the kind who's like, well, these are what the mechanics are, and we need to stick to them, then you might be loath to do that. I'm very much more a laid-back kind of a person on that front. I just, the dice are the means to an end for me. So.
A matter of should you be penalized for dying in the game? Should we say, de-incentivize dying itself is not a deterrent enough? There must be an added penalty on top of that, which can also just kind of make it worse perpetually. So I died because I didn't have good luck, and now in the future combats, I'm even further behind, and how am I ever going to catch up, kind of thing.
Yeah, again, I've done it both ways between 4E and Pathfinder, and like I said, I do get the nature of that being a thing. Honestly, I think the better middle ground would be if you have that incentivizing for death. Don't make it take an act of God to remove. because that was the hardest part about dealing with that, was that it really about the only way I got rid of that in any speedy manner is because the DMs liked me. So they kind of helped me out on that front. But like I said, I see the penalty being more as kind of a side effect of someone going through that trauma. And while that trauma, you may never really entirely get over it, over time, as with things in life, you figure out how to work around it or with it. And I think that should be reflected if you do that de-incentivization. Of course, I've done it the other way, where 4E, doesn't really have that much of a penalty for dying, especially not when you get into epic tier, when you can have powers where you can pretty much insta-res no matter what your destiny is. But even so, I'm kind of easy on that front, but I think if you are going to do it that way, where there is a penalty for dying, don't make it onerous to undo. Like crazy expensive curse removal potions. I mean, that was kind of ridiculous.
Some of the cost of removing a curse or a side effect can be quite pricey, so the best way to go about it is to do a quest or go through the means to get said item or curse lifted.
Yeah. Well, like I said, my experiences with that form of death were in Pathfinder in that living world, and there wasn't much of anything of that kind there. There was an additional form of currency called influence that you could build up. Most of the time, you only earned like about maybe 2 influence, depending on what was going on in the session and what levels you were playing at, and whether or not the DM liked how you were playing. So it would take a while to build that up. So again, it would take a while to build up enough of that currency where you could purchase, for lack of a better phrase, a curse removal potion that would get rid of 2 negative levels. Again, I never would have gotten over those negative levels on my own characters if it weren't for the fact that the DMs actually liked me.
Here's a question. Why should the DMs like you make a difference? Shouldn't they treat everyone fairly no matter what?
Well, I say that because basically what I mean by that basically is I wasn't a jerk in the game, so they did want to help me out and make sure that I wasn't having a bad time. Which, as you should.
I don't mean to be accusatory, of course. I mean,
yeah, I understand.
What is the role of the GM? Is it just simply to be an arbitrator, or do you bend? Do you bake? Do you? I don't know. I mean, I'm just throwing out topics here. If there's other ones that sound more interesting to you guys, I'm open for whatever you want to bring up. I'm just going to keep bringing up the flow of the conversation digs us.
When it comes to showing more attention to one person, that is not necessarily a good thing. It's hard to get rid of favoritism, as it's part of human nature in a way. So, in general, it's good to give everyone equal attention if possible.
Yeah, in this particular case, it was more of a matter of again, while I was working with the negative levels, I had a pretty good reputation with the the rest of the players, not being a jerk, and again, they were trying to. This particular DM in general that helped me out was kind of light on the rules. Was kind of light on the rules anyway for the most part, so they were more willing to, help out, and it wasn't at no cost to me. I think I did eschew some of my rewards for those sessions for that. So, yeah, it wasn't like they were just giving it to me either. So, but yeah, again, maybe I'm not the best person to talk about this because I've literally been a GM only 2 times in my life, and both of which were disastrous. But yeah, I do think the GM does need to be attentive to, when a person might be in a situation with their character that might be threatening the amount of fun that they're having. Yeah, not play favorites on them, but find a way that they can help them out that works not just for them, but doesn't ruin everyone else's fun in the process.
Alrighty. Anything on anyone's mind? Questions about characters you're playing, games you're in, topics of interest? On to another one, but I'm here for you guys.
Yeah. Well, I have a hard time trying to figure this out for myself. I have a hard time figuring out what my favorite classes are. I know what my favorite race is, half-elf, by far, for some weird reason. But I can't figure out what my favorite kind of class is, because I mean I've played cleric more than once, but it's not really like super favorite. It's just one that I happen to play more than once. Of course, I played Warlock for the longest time.
So the topic of what is your favorite class and why?
Yeah. And I've also played more martial characters. I've got one that I made that's just a straight-up fighter right now, but I think I'm giving him the background of being a samurai, even though he's a half-orc with an intelligence of 9. Bring not no much, but bring no meaning of honor.
My favorite race, at least in D&D, it is human. They're so versatile. They can be anything, really. They're not good at anything, nor bad at anything. Classes which I enjoy playing would be wizard and being a cleric. Both of them are quite fun if you know what you're doing.
Personally, my favorite class or class style is Arcane Trickster. I very rarely get the opportunity to actually play an Arcane Trickster, but I absolutely love them. They are a wizard-rogue combo, so you have all of the sneaking and infiltration and skills of the rogue complemented by all of the magical tricks of the wizard, and it is a very fun character for me.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of that myself in 5e. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. It encourages a lot of like outside the box thinking, and it's not just roll to hit the monster and see if it's dead yet.
Color spray, Shank.
And then if you play an AT at really high levels, then it's roll 17d6 and then give up because the monster's dead because you sneak attacked it with like 8 attacks.
At the higher levels, if you go multi-classing as a rogue, wizard, and as the assassin, you can have a deadly character if you know what you're doing.
And if the DM lets you play an assassin.
Yes.
Well, I don't know if this is my favorite class, but this was one of the most fun characters I ever played. I once played a Warforged sword mage that I affectionately named Dinobot, and supposedly he was a Warforged that ship was built to look kind of similar to a Dragonborn. Of course, named after the Beast Wars character. That was so fun to play it because big bulky dinosaur robot taking hits for his other people, and you get a shield of Aegis, and you get a shield of Aegis.
One race which I would actually want to play would be playing as a construct and play as a construct rogue. So I get to play a HK droid. Just picture Star Wars, the HK 51 or 47 droid. A statement. Can I kill the meat bag master?
Although I should admit, I probably shouldn't play Warforged very often because in that particular game, I abused the fact that he was basically a magical android so much. I don't know how the DM let me get away with it.
My Friday group that I play with, a new person that joined recently, he actually broke a lot of the rules. And somehow he got away with it with the GM because he didn't know all of the rules.
Oh wait, no, I think I do know how I got away with it. I got away with it largely because of the rule of cool. Because the way it was implemented was just so darn awesome, he couldn't say no to it.
Welcome, Jay, Kyle, Zach joining us. Talking about what is your favorite character, what do you enjoy a lot, either generally speaking or specifically a specific character that you really enjoyed, and why?
One of the most recent characters I played was, of course, a half-elf, because, again, my favorite race. But she was a cleric, only a very interesting kind of cleric. She was the cleric of my aforementioned anti-theist warlock that became a demigoddess. and toward the end of that campaign, because of it being a part of the long-running group, I actually brought my demigoddess back to finish the fight. So I had my cleric fighting alongside her goddess. I need some divine assistance. Okay.
Other favorite stories?
I'm just trying to look up something real quick so I can remember everything for it. I'm just going to look up a creature because I kind of ties in with it.
I haven't had too much experience myself with playing various characters. I really like my only main one that I've played so far is a gnome named Xana Waywalkett. She's a bard who has been trying her best to kind of make herself stand out in the party, and every time she's kind of failed, which wasn't exactly what I was expecting to play with her, but like she kind of plays it off as she gets flustered easily, and everyone kind of laughs at that. But I think when I play an NPC for the games that I run, and the rest of the group loves them, that's kind of usually when I have a lot of the most fun. Right now, I kind of have like a guild of characters that I've put together for my players in my current campaign that I'm running. That they've been hanging out with like individually each one of them, and I think the one that they have the most fun with is a half-orc barbarian who calls himself the Boulder. And despite me not realizing that I unintentionally made an Avatar: The Last Airbender reference, he refers to himself in third person, so he's always like, the Boulder will take care of this. And I didn't think of that when I was creating him, like, oh, that's just like Avatar. But that came to mind after I introduced him. but they had a lot of fun with him because he would usually pick up the halfling in the party and put him on his shoulders because they were close friends, and then charge forward into battle, and they had this kind of totem battle thing. The halfling was a warlock, and he's a barbarian, so he's swinging his great axe at giant monsters as the warlock is on top of there, pew 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 pew, shooting off eldritch blasts while hexing all of his enemies. And it was a fun little combination that I had no intention of making until we actually played it out. So I think it's usually the surprises that come out in the end that are the most fun for me with characters that I play.
This is another interesting tale. Playing on words when it comes to races, when it comes to character reputation, it's always quite entertaining. The one group that my one character was in, the Diabolists, the group got a reputation for being quite the good group getting tasks done anyway. The halfling within the group reputation, everyone thought he was a dwarf for his size. Anyway, he always got angry when people called him a dwarf, not a halfling. I know, right? Interesting tale.
Yeah. When I was playing Dungeon World, and later on a little bit in the 4E group, because one of the people who played Dungeon World actually came into the 4E group with me, I was playing, at first, my half-elf cleric, and then this later went over to my half-elf warlock in the 4E group. And the joke with my characters were, because both of them had rather short tempers and were prone to going into fits of rage, one of the dwarven characters would go, "If you were a foot shorter and a foot wider..." At one point, I considered having one of my characters go, "Don't let that stop you." Actually, I think I know why I like half-elves. Because yeah, they are a combination of two iconic races that, of course, have are well known and have a lot of prestige behind them, but half-elves, on the other hand, get a lot of crap put on them because of being a mixture, because of being mixed races. And yet they also have as much potential as humans and elves, both, if not more than either one. And you can take a half-elf and put it into almost any class and have a pretty darn decent character.
Yeah, they got the large versatility with them. They can pretty much do anything.
You gotta also remember, humans kind of have like clubs for ears, elves have daggers, and half-elves have butter knives, so that doesn't really give them a good reputation. Not good weapons.
My characters, even when they're not characters that are charisma builds, always tend to be kind of somewhat charismatic anyway. Of course, my warlock and my cleric both were really charismatic half-elves, just, well, because those are two charisma-based classes. But of course, those have that class being able to give the rest of the party a bonus to diplomacy doesn't help either. Doesn't hurt either. because as long as you've got someone who's kind of got a foot in two worlds, you've got a bonus whenever you're talking to other people. Because they know how to tread that line.
That's one of the trickier things, I guess, about having like charisma, because it's kind of a roleplay stat. You can just talk very well, and your DM might give you some benefits, like, hey, you said a really good thing to convince this person, I'll give it to you, or give you a bonus on your roll, or whatever, when you're trying to persuade them. But if you have a character with low charisma, it's like, well, maybe they don't have low charisma after all. Usually, if I play a character with low charisma, I usually give them a bit more stuttering and refer to not talking as often. But it kind of like give off that feel of they're not going to be the ones who, you know, you guys probably want to try to persuade someone to buy some rotten food and pretend it's magical or anything like that. So you can get away with that. It's not going to happen. So you kind of got to really play it off as I can't talk well, but it's weird because you could still be like, oh, I have like an 8 for charisma, but I just really talked good to this guy to convince him to do something for us, you know, as if I had a 16 for charisma. So I don't know.
You could also like eschew social cues, like talk out of turn and speak too loud and interrupt people like that.
Yeah, you're good at talking. You have a good flavorful way of words, but you also interrupted him halfway through his sentence, and no matter what you say, he's not really going to be happy about that.
One of the weird things that I've seen about that is that often you have people who will tell you, oh, because you have an 8 in charisma, just don't talk whatsoever. We don't have time to deal with you.
But that could cause some of the funniest moments.
I know. That's like, why don't we do it?
That's when you start interrupting them. That's when it's like, okay, don't talk. Okay, I won't talk. And they start saying, okay, sir, here, we have this for you to buy. And you're like, buy it. We found it in the bottom of a cave. That's where it was. Oh, sorry, guys, no talking. Shh. You know,
well, like,
that's when
the reason I even bring it up is because, like, one of my favorite characters that I've been DMing right now is this pink-haired gnome named Talon that my group thinks is awesome for some reason. But it was because you're sitting in... she's a slave at the time when they meet her, and so she's supposed to be preparing the meal for her mistress, and they ask her, okay, Talon, I need you to clear the table for the next course. Talon, of course, is like, clear the table. Okay, grabs the edge of the tablecloth and just rips it off. And I'm like, is that a charisma thing or a wisdom thing? But I was like, no. I was like, for her charisma, she's like, I just don't get some of these social graces y'all think make so much sense.
It took me a while to figure this out, but charisma being a spellcasting stat, I had a hard time figuring that out. And then it ultimately dawned to me, at least on the warlock side, why that would be the case. It's because they're basically trying to sweet talk whatever power they've got a pact with into letting them do something with their power.
Oh yes, yeah, please, Eldritch forces, let me burn his face off.
or if they use Constitution, it's basically they're having to, sacrifice a bit of their health in order to do it.
I have always kind of liked that concept. Like in RPGs in general, this I guess mostly goes to video games more than like tabletop things. I haven't seen too much in tabletop, but where like you sacrifice part of your life for using special abilities and magical attacks. Like maybe like you actually sacrifice hit points to go towards damage and things like that. I think I don't know what mainly a lot of classes that would actually do that in like other RPGs. I know like in like Final Fantasy and things like that, it'd be like the Dark Knight or Black Knight, but I don't know like how far it extends outwards to other things. But that is a pretty interesting concept.
And then you've got kind of like the Reckless, or being I can't remember who it is. I think it's a barbarian with the Reckless, where they can attack with advantage, but they have advantage on them. So it's giving them a combat bonus, but I get a hindrance on them as well.
And in Pokemon, the attacks that are really powerful but do recoil damage.
Yeah, those ones too, like double-edged flare blitz. I can go on and on. I used to do a lot of competitive Pokemon battling, so I had to use those a lot.
This is something about Pokemon. The one attack which I was annoyed all the time when someone uses on me was, I think what they did was that Zata uses the dig attack. There is no way to protect your Pokemon against that attack Pokemon. You cannot defend it. It's like Final Fantasy, one of the classes, Dragoon. You jump up, attack, and the enemy cannot defend against it. You just repeat that until they're dead.
Wait, no, if it's a Diglett using Dig, all you have to do is swap to a flying Pokemon, don't you?
Yes, it just the Pokemon that I used mostly during the time was ground Pokemon, not flying. So
Earthquake. Earthquake does double damage as they go into
I was
that.
gonna say I was thinking it was either Earthquake or Fissure, one of the two.
Well, I think both of those actually. Oh no, Fissure's not a one-hit KO. Moves like Earthquake, Magnitude, and stuff like that, the ones that like shake the ground, those ones will do double damage. If you use Dig, then when they pop up, they're not going to attack you, and then you pop up and attack them. And then if you have Protect, you can use that on the turn they're going to pop up and block it off and negate it.
This was back in Generation 1, so I do not know if those moves were added in the later generation.
No, Earthquake was.
But Protect and Earthquake were, but I think that was it. I think the rest of them were not added to later.
Oh.
But yeah, they added kind of moves where, like in other RPGs, if they're like flying up in the sky, there are actually some moves where you can hit them better if they're up or if they're underground. So it's kind of like having your ranger. Okay, there's a dragon flying overhead. Okay, cool. I got reach. Bing.
Yeah. Another concept I kind of like is when is with the Eldritch Knight's ability to like bring the weapon back to them, because you could potentially just start like throwing if you have like weapon that you're bonded with, like say like hand axes, you have dual hand axes, you throw them, and then you ping them right back to you and keep throwing them, ping right back to you, and until you actually get something better to use that you would probably prefer to bond to instead. But you basically have kind of like an infinite ammo throwing weapon right there. And
but
I don't know, to me it's like forget the spell casting, forget the fighting capabilities, just keep throwing axes over and over again.
Magic axes.
Isn't that basically returning, or is that not in the new system?
For the Eldritch Knight in 5th edition, one of your abilities you get early on is you get to magically, if you can do this up to 2 weapons, is spend an hour on each, like bonding it to yourself. And then you can, if you ever lose it, if it's on the same plane of existence as you, as a bonus action, and it's right back in your hands, ready to go.
Yeah, you can only do one at a time.
So I can make Captain America now.
Yeah, and I think Andrew actually does this in the Sinland Trials with a glaive and a black sword with your fire just on it. He's like, I want to use my glaive. I want to use my black sword. That kind of thing. So. If you want a good example of it, watch that.
Oh, I've watched the Sinland Trials. It's pretty awesome. I've enjoyed it. I still feel bad because like I haven't been able to watch it in like the past couple of weeks, and I'm like, crap, I'm missing something I really enjoy.
Your mic is cutting out, Angel.
You're getting really robot-y there, buddy.
All right, Daft Punk, sing along, everybody. Around the world, around the world.
I think Andrew's now Warforged.
Yeah, he got some technical difficulties.
Well, speaking of Warforged and something I had mentioned earlier, what is the craziest thing that you've ever done with your characters that your DM let you get away with?
In the one campaign that I was in for a short while, the X Chronicles, me and some other character, we were messing around with a nobleman. I can't remember who the other person was in the campaign. Anyway, my character was a butler to to another female NPC. The female PC that I was pretending to be a butler to, she used her memorous power, and I just soaked up being the attractive male butler that the noble person fell in love temporarily with. I think Kyle was in the X Chronicles, right?
Who?
Oh, Kyle. Were you in the X Chronicles campaign on the channel, or was it? I can't
Don't
remember.
think so. No, it wasn't to me.
Oh, I was thinking someone else.
I myself haven't tried anything too like crazy or drastic, and I don't think my players in my current campaign that I'm running, I don't think they've really done anything too crazy. But there was a bit of a funny story that I kind of just let happen that I wasn't never expecting, and I just when they presented, I was just like, let's go for it, let's see where it goes. They had entered into a city, and it was turning into kind of a city-based campaign. They were just going to start there to figure out where to go next, and they had gotten their idea of where they're going to go. They're going to spend the night having fun, and one of them, a druid who has never been to the city before, he's like, I heard of these things called brothels, and I'm going to go check it out. And I'm like,
Oh,
okay,
no.
sure, you can go ahead and see if you can learn where they are. So they learned where to go, and they went over to the brothel. And I even let an NPC that they had befriended earlier. He came up and he was like, hey, you guys have been to my favorite place. Let's go inside. And he ushered the bouncer to let them in because he's a popular guy there. And they went in there, and there's women dancing all over the place. And I didn't really want to let them get away with getting into some sort of very adultish game kind of going on here, because I didn't really want to describe that verbally. But it's like I was like, okay, yeah, sure. A couple women come up to you and they want to pull you into a private room, and they go into there. He is supposed to not know what's supposed to happen whatsoever, because he's never been in the city before, never been to one of these things before. He's like, I hear you're supposed to have fun here. What are you supposed to do here? And they're like, oh, have fun, all natural, you like it because you're a druid. And he's like, okay, sure. Goes into the room, and they start touching up on his shoulders, and he's getting really uncomfortable. And I think it was because I uttered the words show us the animal inside you. He's like, okay, and turns into a cat, jumps into their hair, and starts freaking him out. They all get kicked out of the brothel. The guards are ready to kill the cat, but the players are like, no, we'll take care of the cat. We'll get this over and throw it in the river or something. And they take him behind an alley so he can change back. It was a fun time. I think that was one of the best single moments of our campaign that the players were so far that they loved a lot. It was, and I just that was probably the most I'm gonna wing it moment. Also, most of my other stuff I had half prepared, with freedom to move wherever it needed to be, but that was the only thing I didn't expect whatsoever, and it was crazy enough that I was like, let's go for it and see where it goes. It makes sense. So.
The one that we did a couple of months ago, we were trying to figure out how we wanted to make my friends' PC's parents, and we were like, we don't know what to do with these characters. They're just, all we know is they're a bunch of rich people. We don't want to make them snobs, though. So my friend throws out, I want my dad to be a really famous inventor. And I'm like, okay. What do you mean by famous inventor? You're like, I want him to be the first person to use clockwork golems. I was like, okay. I was like, notice I haven't started putting clockwork in my world yet. So what do we want to do in the meantime until he figures that out? They're like, well, how about gunpowder? As the primary motion, I was like, okay, let's try gunpowder. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to go with this. And he says that his dad tries an experiment one moment and blows up half of the house. And so then everybody was like, you know what? Let's just make this our new thing. So it becomes the alarm for the entire city to let them know that it is early in the morning. Is the dad blows something up? Like, okay, we know it's 7 a.m. in the morning because Dimitri Kane just blew up another section of his house.
Damn it, Kane! I was trying to sleep in today.
carpenter's got to get up early, head over there, fix his house for him again.
Well, no. One of the other things they ended up doing is they said, you know what, we'll make. His wife ended up making like flesh golems or something so she could have something actually fix the house because like I can't rely on his crap anymore because he's destroying everything. Like we had one where he made a robotic butler just to make the sheets. It wasn't doing anything strenuous, just making a bed. It blew up and took out his son's room. It's like it's like we can't. I was like, I can't even respect this character anymore. He's such an idiot.
God, by comparison, mine's almost tame to y'all. But it is one of those things where I can't believe the DM got away with this, and I can only imagine it's because of Rule of Cool. I was playing in a 4E group where I was playing Warforged Samurai Sword Mage that I affectionately named Dinobot. And I didn't do the voice the whole time because having to do a voice like this for a long time probably would have strained my voice. But we had gone into a cave to rescue one of the Lord's daughters, lords of this city that we were based out of, daughters. Only we got there like just after this evil wizard had tried to sacrifice her to this huge-ass dragon and actually stabbed her. We managed to somewhat stabilize her and bring her back, but she ended up dying. And we were implicated for the murder. Okay. So we are in court in front of the council of the lords of the town. Her father is our prosecutor, so he's not a part of the council. And, of course, we're going through the whole courtroom thing, talking about it, and the lords go to make their decision. The father of the daughter comes over to us and is like, look, just take the rap for this, you'll stay in jail for a little while it'll all blow over and it'll go away. Don't make a big deal out of this. I'm a very powerful man. I can make your lives miserable. Just take it and leave it as it is. My character, my character, lawful good, by the way, goes, are you threatening us? Because that sounds an awful lot like you're trying to threaten and blackmail us, and I'm very sure that those guys over there that are talking to each other would love to hear what you're doing right now. So he goes off sheepishly saying nothing, but the DM has no idea what I have in mind for this. And the council comes, and I go out, okay, before you make your decision, I do have something to say, and that is that man over there tried to blackmail us, and I have recorded that, on my person for you to hear. And, that was something I had also told the guy, because I have a recorder on my person. I can play it back for